It's a great honor to speak in front of so many fellow Marathi folks. We don't get the opportunity very much. There's not too many of us. So as they said, I'm born and raised in the Bay Area. I spent almost my entire life here. I grew up in Saratoga. I went to college, undergraduate in Berkeley, did my MBA at Stanford. Now I live in Los Altos. So I've sort of hovered around a 30-40 mile radius almost my entire life. Of course, my work takes me all over the world, but this has been home for me. So I guess what I was going to do is tell you a little bit about myself, my upbringing, and what got me to where I am today, working in sports, and then maybe share a few lessons learned around leadership and building teams. And at least, some of what is important as part of my ethos for what helps drive success in business, in teams, and whatnot. So, a little bit about me. Like I said, I grew up in Saratoga, and very typical Indian American family. My dad was an electrical engineer from IIT, of course, and came out here in the 60s to work actually came out here in the late 60s to get his PhD at Berkeley, and then worked at HP. So very traditional family. I would say that one thing that was not traditional is that I wasn't really someone who wanted to be a doctor or an engineer or a lawyer, whatever, those three golden career paths that every Indian kid is supposed to do when they grow up. That just wasn't what I was passionate about. I was someone who I loved sports. I loved competition. I loved teams. From a very early age, I would consume the sports page front to back every single morning from as early as I could read. I was just every day watching every sport that I could. It was just what I loved. And I never really knew that there was a career around it other than being a player or a coach. And so it was actually once I got to college and I saw the movie Jerry Maguire with Tom Cruise. Who's seen Jerry Maguire? Okay, all right. So it was actually only after I saw that movie that I realized, wow, there's this whole other side of the business. You don't need to be just a player or a coach. There is something about running a team. You could be a general manager, you could be an agent. There's so much about the business of a sports team that's much more than just winning and losing. It's about building the big business or building the asset value of a franchise and all of those things. And so when I was in college, I sent my resume around to every sports agency, every sports team, any sports business affiliated entity. And so it was probably, I don't even know, 150, 200 different resumes and cover letters that I sent across everywhere. And nobody responded because, I don't look the part. American sports, professional sports is pretty much a white and a black industry. And so there's not much room for brown guys like me. There wasn't then, and there's not even so much now, and I'll talk about that later. But finally, after pressing, there was one group that got back to me. That was IMG, a sports agency that was based in San Francisco, and they offered me an unpaid internship that didn't even cover my BART fare from Berkeley to San Francisco. In fact, I was losing money monthly, and I was a college kid, but I was willing. I wanted to do it because I wanted to pursue a career in sports. So I ended up doing an unpaid internship for 3 years in my sophomore, junior, and senior year, all the summers in between, while all my friends, had paying jobs, paying internships. But it was what my passion was. And like I said, I didn't want to be a doctor. I didn't want to be an engineer. I wanted to follow my passion. And so after college, I realized when I was at IMG that pro sports is also a very polarizing industry compensation-wise. You either get paid very well or you don't. You're an unpaid intern. There's not a whole lot in between. So when I finished, I realized I need to start paying my rent and finding a place to live and all that after I graduated. So I went into management consulting just because I knew I needed to, make a little bit of money. And so I worked at Bain & Company for a few years. And actually just a fortuitous turn of events for me is that the 49ers hired Bain to work on a project in 2001. And it was a project on valuing the NFL draft in 2001. Not players, but actual draft picks. The exchange rate, the currency value when you make trades, what's the correct value. So it was very, creative. It was very like using empirical data to build an algorithm to figure out what the proper exchange rate should be. It was a very analytical exercise. And I was the 23-year-old kid that was put on that Bain project team to work for the 49ers. And for me, as I said, like that was my dream. It was 49ers headquarters, which is right around the corner. That was like my temple for me. And so we're working there for it was a 3-month project, and it really crystallized for me, this is what I want to do in my career. So I got my lucky break because Bill Walsh and the 49ers gave me a chance in 2001. And I haven't left. I've been there since. And I've had a number of jobs. I started out working in football operations, so negotiating contracts, helping the folks negotiate contracts and manage the salary cap and things like that. I still do that today, so I negotiate all of our player contracts, manage our cap, run our football operations. But for 7-8 years, I was president and COO of the team as we were trying to figure out where to build a stadium, how to build a stadium, how to finance the stadium, how to sell the stadium. And so we put that together, built Levi's Stadium in 2014, and hosted the Super Bowl right here in the Bay Area in 2015, and now the Super Bowl is coming back, which is great. And after we opened the stadium is when we we continued on the path to wanting to build intellectually and you take advantage of our brand. And so we started 49ers Enterprises, of which I'm president of now. And that is really, the concept is around taking advantage of the people that we've brought to the 49ers, the intellectual curiosity that we have, the Silicon Valley mindset that we have, and obviously the power of the 49ers brand to go out and do other things, to kind of transform us from being a billion-dollar lemonade stand of an NFL team to being a multi-billion-dollar sports and entertainment company. And that's really what we've been trying to do. And so recently, 5 years ago, we took a minority position in a football club in England called Leeds United. And recently, we just took over 100% control of that club, and I'm now chairman and controlling owner of Leeds United, in addition to my 49ers job. So that's why I travel a lot now, even though this is home. And so that's going to be a fun project in and of itself. But everything is always around sport and competition. It's just sort of who I am. It's not just what I do, it's also who I am, and it's part of my ethos. And so with that, I was going to share just a few thoughts that I have that might be relevant for all of you as you're leading teams, as you're building enterprise value at wherever you work. And so, a few of the things for me, I guess like the ingredients that make me tick, that have made me tick. The first, which I keep talking about, but I think it's an important message, is it really doesn't make sense to pursue something that you're not passionate about. And what I mean is we all spend so much of our lives working, right? And probably of your awake hours, you spend more time with your colleagues professionally than you do with your family. And so, you pick your spouse and your family based on passion and who you want to spend time with. Why not pick your job the same way? And so, it's really important, I think, to be passionate about what you do. And so, my parents were skeptical at first, but, they allowed me to pursue my passion, and that's something that I'm going to do and pass on to my children as well. That I don't want to, outline for them what career path they have to choose just because it's a prestigious career path or just because they have to make money. Honestly, if you're passionate about something, everything else will come. And because you spend so much of your time doing it, you might as well love what you do. For me, it doesn't feel like work. It still feels like I'm that kid when I was 6 years old eating the sports page for breakfast every morning. It's what it feels like for me. It doesn't feel like a job. Obviously, there's a lot of stress at different times, but it's still what I love doing. And I just think that's so important. Otherwise, you're just going through the motions, and life is short. And so you really should just pursue what it is you love and hopefully pass that to your colleagues or people who work for you or your own kids, because everything else will follow that if you start with that. I think the second thing for me that has really driven me in my career and I think has served me well most of the time is just a belief that change is okay. Inertia and status quo is a really powerful thing, and it's very convenient to just go with the inertia and go with whatever way the tide or the wind is blowing and not really upset anything. It's just very easy because you could do nothing and Tuesday still comes, and you can do nothing to change and Wednesday still comes, and keep on going and it's the weekend, and then you recycle and you do the next week. So the mentality that I've always had is just because something's been done for a long period of time in a certain way doesn't make it the right way. If there's a new way to do something and a better way to do something, then go out and pursue it and do it. I've taken that attitude with me throughout my career at the 49ers, taken that attitude with me to now what we're doing at Leeds United. And I think it's really served me well, especially, I'm a person who doesn't look the part of a sports executive, being an Indian American, here or in the UK, and I'm not, as I'm talking about the UK, Leeds United, most owners of clubs are, third, fourth generation multi-billionaires who are doing it as a hobby or doing it because, they need to do something with their time. And what I'm out to prove is that running a successful football club and owning a successful football club can be a meritocracy, not an aristocracy. And so that's really what is driving me. Just trying to do it just because it's always been done that way, and everybody looks the same in terms of in ownership, doesn't mean that it's the best way. It doesn't mean it's the right way. Maybe there's something beyond money in terms of outworking and out hustling and out communicating and getting ahead that way, not just by having more money, right? And so that's sort of the mentality that I'm now taking to Leeds, and who knows where we'll be in 5 or 10 years. So maybe you can remember today when we fast forward 10 years from now and look back on today if I was successful or not. But that's really the challenge that I take now to Leeds. I think the third thing that has really served me well in my career is my mentality around building teams and my mentality around building successful teams and high-performing teams. And there's kind of three messages or three key things that I always look to do when hiring that I think has really served me well. The first is just fish in a different pond, meaning don't necessarily fish in the pond that everybody else is fishing in. In the NFL, in pro sports, a very common practice is to just hire recycled people who have been successful or unsuccessful in other sports teams, but just by the virtue of their experience that they've had somewhere, somebody spent 5 years as a ticket sales executive in Major League Baseball, suddenly gets promoted to be a head of sales for an NBA team, picks up another 5 years experience, and now 10 years of experience in multiple sports leagues, and now they're a CRO of an NFL team because by virtue of their experience, not necessarily the merits of their success. And so, I decided, let's not do it that way. I don't want to hire recycled sports executives. As I was hiring a team at the 49ers of C-level employees in 2009, 10, and 11, a team that we needed to hire, we needed a high-performing team because we needed to figure out how to build a stadium, how to sell a stadium, how to finance the stadium, and all of that. And so if I just fished in the pond of recycled sports executives, we weren't going to be successful. So instead, I said, let me just actually, a very novel concept, I say that facetiously, but a very novel concept. Let me just go hire who I think are the best talented people for the job. And if they happen to have sports experience, okay, that's great, but it's not going to be my prerequisite. Also, I'm not going to necessarily care, I'm not going to care about the color of their skin or their gender. I'm just going to hire the best people. And, you know, pretty straightforward, easy, intuitive thing, but that's not how hiring was done that's still probably not how hiring is done in professional sports. And so, what did I get? I got an extremely talented group of executives, many of whom came from tech, many of whom came from from Wall Street, from management consulting, different industries, to come in and be my COO, my CFO, my head of strategy, my general counsel, all of those things. And we built ourselves a really great team that everyone doubted us, which was actually probably a source of a chip on our shoulder to help drive us a little bit more. But it was just the ability to fish in another pond. And we built a really high-performing team. And the truth is, knowledge of the sport is great, but it's not imperative. What's imperative is the hustle and the intelligence and the knowledge to succeed or die trying. Like that type of mentality is what we needed to be able to build a successful commercial organization at the 49ers and build a stadium. And so that's one thing that I take a lot of great pride in, because now a lot of those folks that I hired 10, 15 years ago are now presidents and CEOs of other sports teams and other leagues. And you know how they got their chance? Because now they got their sports experience, right? Because their first sports job was with me, and now they're out doing great, successful things because they're in the flow of the sports industry. So that was one thing about building teams that has served me well. Second thing is there's a lot of insecurity that all of us have, myself included. There's a lot of insecurity and people feeling threatened that, hey, if I hire someone too good, they're going to take my job. But that's just I think, a silly mentality that you have to get yourself out of, because what's best is hire as many people as you can who are smarter than you, who are more talented than you. And you know what? If ultimately one of them replace you, that's probably a good thing for the enterprise. Maybe not so good for you, but just focus on hiring the best. And like I always wanted to hire people who are smarter than me and more capable than me, if possible, because that's what's going to really lead us to success. And so that was something that I think has really served well. And then the last thing is hire people that have that the intellectual stimulation and the mentality that I mentioned before, of that succeed or die trying mentality. That there is no glass ceiling, there is no barrier that's too daunting or too big. That's just the mentality of, you know what, we're going to succeed in doing this, and that will and that drive, which elite athletes have. And trying to hire a team that has that elite drive, I think is really, really important. And so, at the end of the day, it just comes back to the mentality that I was talking about, which is around fighting that inertia, right? And the guys wanted me to talk a little bit about cricket, and so I will do that now. For 3 years, I was chairman of USA Cricket as we were trying to build a T20 league, or trying to think about how do we bring a T20 league here to the US. And from a fundamental business premise, if you just think about the fact that cricket is the second largest sport in the world, and the US is the largest media market in the world, just knowing those two things alone, you don't need to, it doesn't matter if the ball is spherical or oblong or stuffed or puffed, it doesn't matter. That just smells of a business opportunity, right? Second largest sport in the world and the largest media market in the world. And then you add on the fact that we have such a big South Asian expat or immigrant population here who historically wakes up in the middle of the night to watch IPL matches on Willow or streaming wherever it might be available. There's just such a latent opportunity, and so that's where one of the first things that I did as chairman of USA Cricket is do an RFP to see who would want to take charge of building a T20 league here. And I was actually really pleasantly surprised and impressed to see we had 36 responses of organizations and investment groups that wanted the opportunity to have the exclusive rights to build this league. And so, for those of you who know or don't know, Major League Cricket just started the T20 League this summer. Actually, I think the final is tomorrow. And who knows, it's still in its nascent stages, and hopefully it develops into something much bigger. But there's no doubt that the opportunity is there. And you know, it just took a little bit of different thinking. It took a little bit of fighting the inertia and fighting the complacency to just try to do something different. And I think, you know, everything that I've just said, that mentality, and I guess also the mentality of it's okay to fail too, because at the end of the day, you know, no great success has come without any hardship. And so everything takes, and everything worth achieving, everything worth fighting, it's not worth it if it's not worth fighting for, right? And so failure is okay along the way, because among many failures you're going to find different diamonds in the rough. And you know, I've been fortunate in my career to be able to find some of those. And I guess I'll just close with that. Appreciate everybody taking the time to hear me out here. And you know, really the big thing for me is about passion and pursuing your career. And I'll do this, and I'll do this again at the BMM convention. Is implore all of you guys with your kids to let them pursue what it is that they're passionate about, because everything else will follow from that. Thank you. I don't know if I'm going to take any questions or anything, or however you want to do this.
Or this again. But Parag, thank you for coming here. I think I really appreciate the fact that it's his wife's birthday today, so we wish you all for your wife. It's been awesome that you came here and you know, gave this inspirational speech. I know that people would like to take selfies, pictures with you, but please be with audience for some time, and then you can leave if you want. So thank you very much. Thank you once again. Yes. Yeah. Do you, we would like to give you a token, and then.
So our next speaker is Shri